Buckeye Talk is back. It is our first game time decisions of the 2021 season. I'm Nathan Baird, along with Stephen Means here from cleveland.com. We are in Minnesota for tonight's season opener against Minnesota. Ohio State trying to make its third straight playoff run, and these are the big kind of elements that have to be shored up for Ohio State to start the season 1-0. Stephen, what is your game time decision?
It's about C.J. Stroud. We've talked at length about the idea that I don't know, he doesn't have to necessarily be a playmaker, but he does have to be a game manager, given what the weapons are on offense. I don't know if I 100% believe in that. I think there has to be a certain level of just comfort he has to give fans and knowing that, there is that element in him because he's eventually going to have to be at some point this season. And so I put numbers on what he needs to accomplish in game one. And I used the last 5 quarterbacks who have started a game for Ohio State, what their debuts were to kind of come with that number. And they averaged Braxton Miller, J.T. Barrett, Cardell Jones, Dwayne Haskins, and Justin Fields. And I averaged out what their numbers were. The common denominator is they all won, obviously, for those guys in actual normal football games, while Cardell Jones's was in the Big Ten title game. But they won. That's job number one. But the numbers are 3.8 for completing 3.8 passes, 3.8 of 20 passes for 222.6 yards, 3.2 touchdowns, and then 38.8 rushing yards. He doesn't have to have a rushing touchdown. But I think that needs to be his basement. It's not ultra efficient, but it's also good enough to where it's clear you took some shots downfield, you completed some of the short game stuff, you impacted the passing game, you had some passing touchdowns, you were a threat with your legs as well. You did a little bit of everything else, even if you weren't necessarily the guy heavy lifting the offense. He needs to be at that baseline number, and maybe that's where he needs to be all season as he continues to develop, but that's at least where he needs to be in game one. I think that would give a lot of fans a little bit of comfort if he does all that while also not committing any turnovers.
So my game time decision also concerns the quarterback position, but kind of from a different perspective. It's more about the people around him, or I guess more to the point, the people in front of him. We all know that Justin Fields took some sacks over the course of his career. Part of that was, I wouldn't say by design, but he was a guy who was willing to let plays develop and take his shot. I don't think C.J. Stroud is going to play quarterback like that on Thursday night, or at least at the beginning of this process for him. It may be something he grows into more over the course, but I would expect to see a short passing game more utilized, which is going to help protect him a little bit from that kind of pass rush. However, Minnesota has, we all know Oregon has Kayvon Thibodeau waiting in week 2. I think a lot of even casual football fans by now have heard about Kayvon Thibodeau. Minnesota has a guy named Boye Mafe who is also like kind of rising up draft boards, has a lot of respect as a guy who's going to be an NFL pass rusher in the near future. And what Ohio State has to do is not let Boye Mafe have his coming out party on a kind of a national stage at the expense of its first-time redshirt freshman starting quarterback. Mafe had 4.5 sacks last year in Minnesota's. It looks like he played 6 games. So he is a pretty prolific pass rusher already. You cannot have, and if he gets to C.J. Stroud once, okay, sometimes that's going to happen if you decide to pass the ball enough, and he's a talented enough guy. But you can't let him start getting 2-3 sacks in a game like this. I think that has the potential to change the complexion of a game like this. You're getting to C.J. Stroud, you're rattling him from a physical standpoint, just throwing, putting Ohio State off schedule on some drives, but you're also potentially rattling him from a confidence standpoint. I don't know that that's a necessarily a huge problem. They're going to have Nicholas Petit-Frere at left tackle. It's what does Minnesota do to try to attack Ohio State elsewhere? Because you got other guys who are moving around a little bit. Darren Munford's still getting his legs under him at left guard. Paris Johnson Jr., although he's played a few snaps in some big games, has not been a starter yet. So he's at right guard, which is, he's been there a while now, so he should be used to it, I suppose, at right guard. And then DeJuan Jones, kind of the other kind of unknown, how he's going to come out and hold down that right tackle position, if that is the lineup as we assume it to be on Thursday night. So Ohio State just has to keep Boye Mafe out of that like Big Ten Player of the Week kind of consideration. Because I feel like that's one of the elements that's lurking, that if he were to have a big game, that helps maybe propel Minnesota to a big game. Those are our game time decisions, but get the text 614-350-3315. Send a text to that. You can sign up for a 2-week free trial. It's $3.99 a month after that, but you get a great 2-week free trial right now to decide if the intel, the analysis, everything else that we're bringing you through those texts before the game, during the game, 7 days a week, if that's worth that $3.99 a month you want to give, because you're going to get a couple of games here to start the season under that 2-week free trial. Stay with us here at Buckeye Talk.